Let's get started. I'd first of all like to welcome everyone. We're delighted to have you join us today. I mean, like me, I'm sure you're excited to get an understanding of the topic of today's session. Permit compliance, the easy way from complexity to digital solution powered simplicity. It's quite a complex title, but I think it's one that sums up what we're trying to do here beautifully. The underlying theme is from complexity to simplicity. So bear that in mind as we find our way through. In the session today, we're going to be, covering the transitioning of permit requirements to a digital solution and the benefits of, implementing such a solution. We're going to be looking at driving compliance, along with reporting and insights, and how to grow your own program. And we're going to, show you how to get some help along the way there. And we'll also be sharing with you so that you can benefit from past experience, some of the lessons learned from previous implementations that have been conducted by our experts. Now, to help us on that journey and to navigate us through the transition from complexity to simplicity, I'm delighted to be joined by two experts from Benchmark Gensuite, Elizabeth Fisher, one of our global subscriber development leaders, and also from one of our most trusted partners, Fuco Consulting, Principal Consultant, Meredith Boyer. And now the session today will offer you an opportunity to, answer questions via the chat. We'll pause at various points just to sort of give you an opportunity to sort of pick up on those and for us to, try and get some responses. Of course, if there are questions that, we can't answer in the session today, we'll be only too happy to sort of pick those up after the session and make sure you get answers to all of those things. We're going to be running a couple of polls during the session about your own compliance journey, just to help sort of set things in tone, and also about the session at the end in general. We're really interested in your responses to these polls. I appreciate your participation, and of course we will, share those results as they come in live. So without further ado, enough of the introduction. Let's get into the real meat in today's sandwich. I'd like to hand you over to the first of today's experts, Elizabeth Fisher.
Thanks, Pete. Hi, everybody. Very excited to speak with you today about managing your permit compliance. As we kick things off here, for those of you that are not so familiar with the Benchmark solutions already, I do want to give just a very quick overview of who we are and what the product we deliver is. Benchmark Gensuite has been in this EH&S software space for over 25 years now. We pride ourselves on being a very unified solution with a variety of different modules to help you manage all areas of compliance across your facilities. Today, we're going to be talking about areas that fall under the EH&S side, specifically primarily around the environmental side, but we do also offer solutions around operational and risk management, sustainability, stewardship and supply chain management, as well as ESG reporting. Our solutions over the last 25 years have been entirely organically developed. As we've grown, we've not grown by acquisition. Instead, everything has been developed by our team in-house, which allows our solutions to really intelligently speak with each other and have connections where you want your tools to be able to talk to each other. Our tools are built based on best practice workflows, which means that as you look to deploy, you don't have to build a solution from the ground up, but instead you're starting with some tried and true best practices that have already been tested and utilized in the workplace. We are a global company. We support folks all over the world across a very wide variety of industries. And part of the way we do this is through allowing an unlimited user license. Rather than doing our licensing, with bounds of per users or per sites, this can allow you to operationalize your compliance initiatives across your entire organization, making sure that many folks can play a role as they need to. One thing that is key about the way the solution is delivered is that we are a non-versioned solution. What that's going to mean for you is that as we make changes and updates to our software, we roll them out to our subscriber base as a whole so that your solution is continuously evolving along with your program. Now, one thing that we will not have time to touch on today, but is also key to the way that we're offered, is that we want it to be very comprehensive. We do have a mobile application that is part of the standard deployment. It's available for Apple and Android devices. And everything you can do from your desktop, you can do from your mobile device as well. Additionally, there's tons of integrated analytics and AI to help you make better use of the data that you're getting in from your individual end users. We offer, as I mentioned, a very wide variety of different tools to help you manage all pieces of your environment, health, and safety or sustainability programs. But today we're going to be focusing in on just a couple of key areas. The first of those will be our compliance calendar tool. And as we go online later in our time today, I'll be giving a demo of that and how we work together with HUCO to get your permits turned into actionable tasks and then track those through to closure and completion in the calendar. And we'll also be touching on our inspection tool. As you need to do some routine inspections to ensure that you're staying in compliance with various requirements, you're able to digitize those inspections into the inspection tool and then escalate any of your non-compliances or non-conformities into the action tracking system to again be able to close that loop and track everything to closure. Of course, there's a number of other areas that can play a part in this permit compliance discussion. So if there are things that stick out to you that we're not going to cover as a part of our call today, please feel free to reach out, and my contact information will be at the end of the deck. But with that quick overview, Meredith, I will hand it over your way to talk about how HUCO handles permit and environmental management.
Thank you. I'm also excited to be here. We're going to start off with a poll. So everybody might be in a different spot that's attending in today's session, where you are in your permit and environmental management journey. And so we wanted to kind of get a sense of that. Today, we're going to be focusing on permit organization and deconstruction, but you might be in any one of these different spots in your permit and environmental management journey. You might be implementing data collection systems, trying to simplifying your data collection process. You might not even have an environmental management system yet and looking or interested in getting started. So if everybody can kind of answer this poll, we would really appreciate it, and we'll kind of see what kind of information we get back. All right. And you can kind of go to the next slide, Elizabeth. Oh, can we see the answers? Let's see. Okay, so it looks like about 50% are actively working on it. That's great news. And about a quarter are want and need to learn more. And 14% are getting started, and 14% have strong established programs. So that's a pretty good wide arrangement of people. So I think this presentation will be right up your alley. And what we're going to talk about will be a good fit for you. And I'll try to kind of tailor some information directly towards these answers. So this is helpful. Okay, so when we're talking about permit deconstruction and compliance content building, we're also talking about management of change. We're talking about taking your permits, regulations, it could be policies, procedures, different plans that you have, and getting actionable items out of those plans and making content from them for different applications for your systems. But we're also talking about management of change, right? Those policies, procedures, plans, and permits change. So it's not only the initial lift of getting that content into your system, it's also how you're going to manage the change when that content changes, right? Permits are renewed, regulations change, plans are updated, policies and procedures are updated. Along those same lines, while we or you are going through those permits, policies, procedures to gather that information to create your content, you're also running across information that might be useful for other applications. These are some other applications within Benchmark where if you're implementing those or you're actively using them, you can also gather information that might be useful, different limits or needing to monitor for certain things for water watch, air log, emission factors and air log. And then, like Elizabeth mentioned, while we're deconstructing, we might find something that might be better suited in inspections or action tracking system versus compliance calendar. So those are all things that we can kind of talk through with you when we're kind of talking through your project and help you understand, which applications you're implementing and which applications, where a task might be better suited in which application. This is just the white paper that went out with the webinar advertisement, and you'll also be getting a copy of this. What I wanted to highlight here, I know we have some viewers that are Benchmark active users and some that aren't. Benchmark does a really great job of talking about content for your system, and not all vendors do. And what I want to highlight here is, just having a solution isn't the answer to compliance, right? Just implementing your solution is not going to make you comply with all your permits and requirements. You have to have content in your system, and not everybody thinks about this. We call it the last critical mile. And so you have to have a way to get the content or the requirements from your documents that you have to comply with into your system. And what we're going to talk about for the rest of the presentation is how we do that, how we help our clients do that, and different ways that you can think about doing that. So why do you want to deconstruct your permits? Well, it's not a secret that the regulations and the requirements are complex, right? And a lot of what we have to do to comply with them is in the field. And it's typically our operators that are having to comply with these rules and regulations from our permits and requirements. And a lot of the requirements are in really complicated language in the permit and regulations. When we're deconstructing the permit, we're taking those complicated requirements and putting it into easy to understand language. We try to get things down to a high school reading level, so the operator can clearly understand what exactly they have to do. Now, some tasks will be assigned to like overall EHS personnel. That's something that we can, work through with you at the beginning of a project. Doing deconstructions takes time. I sat in industry for a number of years. And when we were implementing our compliance system, I wanted to do the deconstructions myself. I was managing compliance for 35 facilities up and down the East Coast, everything from safety to environmental, 5 or 6 permits for each facility. And I was intimately familiar with what my facilities had to do to comply. Did I have the knowledge to do those deconstructions myself? Absolutely. But what I didn't have was time. I already had a full-time job, more than a full-time job. I was working more than 40 hours a week. At Huco, this is all we do. We have a team of people that do this for 40 hours a week. So, having the time to really do this consistently across the company is what our clients typically don't have. And, there were 40 other me's doing it across the whole company. And so what that results in is inconsistency, and everybody writing a record keeping task, let's say, or a maintenance task or a Title V annual compliance certification task differently. And that results in management, people that are kind of overseeing the system from a higher level. It makes it really difficult for them to manage the system. And when you don't have content for your system, you're really resulting in incomplete setup for your system, right? You've implemented your modules, you've implemented your applications, but then there's no content in the system to really tell somebody how to comply. And having consistent deconstructions across all your facilities as much as possible will keep things simple and streamlined across your facilities. So this is our process that we follow for permit deconstruction. So we take everything we get for a deconstruction, whether it be a regulation, a procedure, a policy, a permit, and we follow this process. We call it the Who Comply process. Huco and Comply meshed together is Who Comply. Now, what we have, though, is a library of tasks, right? We've deconstructed permits in almost all 50 states, and we've deconstructed the majority of the federal regulations. And so we have something to start with pretty much every permit we get from every client. It may not be perfect fit for use for what you have, but it's something that we can start with. So we're usually not starting from scratch. But we analyze your document, we go line by line. We don't go section by section or page by page. We look at every single word in your document. And we're pulling out what we think is actionable and not actionable. and we're designating that. And anything that's not actionable, we're giving you a reason why that's not actionable. So you can see, hey, permit condition IA2, we don't think you need a task for that, and here's why. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a little bit. Once we determine your actionable items, we then develop a task for it. So that'll be like a task title, a task description, telling somebody what to do. It'll have a frequency, like monthly, semi-annual, quarterly, what have you. A next due date. Will suggest who it should be assigned to, like if it should be assigned to like an operator in the field or somebody, you know, in EHS, if it's a reporting task or something. We review it internally, and then it's reviewed with you as the client. And so we're going to talk about this also, but typically the reviews by the client can take a little bit longer up front when we're getting to know you a little bit. It's like a courtship period, right? Like we're getting to know what you like in a task, how you like your tasks worded. Do you like them proactive, reactive? Do you like them more specific, a little more general? But once that initial courtship period is over and we have like a really good relationship going, then those reviews can take a little bit less time. And then it's loaded into the system, and we can load it or you can load it. Benchmark is one of the easiest systems to load into. We're going to show you how that looks too. And then the tasks are created and in the system, and you're complying with your requirements. And like I said earlier, other things can be extracted in the process, right? Like information on assets, permit limits, other items that are maybe better suited in inspections versus compliance calendar. So we create tasks that are fit for use for your entire organization. Again, maybe somebody in quality should have a task or somebody in operations. But the goal is to provide clear instruction for frontline workers. We replace the regulatory references and jargon with clear language, and we eliminate options. There's no soft language like should or shall that require interpretation. The sentences are short. The tasks are as short as possible. There's no uncertain due dates. You know, for tasks that like a report that has a hard and fast due dates, those are pretty simple, right? But for other tasks that are more general, like maintaining records for a certain period of years or performing maintenance, we'll come up with a way to create those tasks that make sense for your organization. You might have another application where you do your maintenance, and maybe there isn't a task that's needed. So we want to avoid duplicity, right? That gives everybody a bad taste in their mouth if they're having to kind of close out tasks in two different places. So we'll work with you directly to kind of understand that for your company.
Meredith, sorry to interrupt your flow there.
Sure.
We've got a question that's come in through the chat, which I think was quite an interesting one. It says, is the Hue comply process and AI based, is the Hue comply process an AI based process or human/manual?
So it is not an AI-based process, and that's a great question. We're actually going to get into AI in these next two slides. So I couldn't have answered that question better myself. Thank you. It's not an AI process, it's human-based. Everything is human-based within Huco. We may do a little searching for like a keyword or a regulation, but that's like literally just doing Control F and searching for that. Also, we know our library really well because we're using it every day. So, you know, we just know where to go to find like this task in Louisiana that requires this, or this task in this California Air District that requires this for this specific South Coast Air Quality Management District rule, right? I mean, we're using this stuff every day. But, you know, an AI tool, and the next slide will dictate this a little bit more, but an AI tool is really extracting the information out, and it's parsing the information. So it's taking your permit or your regulation and it's creating a spreadsheet for you that says this condition and this condition and this condition all have actionable content, and it's regurgitating that condition, right? And so at the end, you're getting an AI developed list of requirements that then you can push in as tasks, but you're going to wind up with a lot of duplicity. And so what we're doing, what we call is the last critical mile, which we're taking those conditions and we're combining them where we can and creating a simple task, right? Instead of just the regurgitation of the permit language or the rule language. We're getting it down to like a high school grade reading level and giving clear, direct instruction what the operator or what the person should do to complete the requirement and comply. And so if you go to the next slide, it kind of shows a little bit better. So in this case, this is an actual general stormwater permit. And there's two separate pages in section IA2 and 2C. It's separated by about 20 pages. And one page is a condition and this page is a condition. And the conditions are long, right? And so what the AI tool is up top, that's what it's going to do. It's going to give you condition IA2 and 2C in a list separated by a number of other conditions, right? And then, yes, you can push that, you can load that into your system compliance calendar, but you're going to wind up with two tasks telling somebody to do basically the same thing. And it's going to be a task with all those words in it directly out of the permit. What we do is we take those two requirements and combine them and streamline them and create this basically short paragraph that you're seeing here. I know it's a little hard to read, but it basically says, for the current calendar quarter, do your visual examination of stormwater from outfalls 002, 003, 004, observe for these things, document these things, and report this. So it's very clear. It removes all the jargon. There's no, extra wording in there that doesn't need to be in there. And it takes out all the regulatory, mumbo jumbo, basically, that doesn't need to be in there. And it's much more easy for an operator to comply with that than to kind of sift through all the information in those permit conditions and figure out what to do.
Thanks, Meredith. So we've got a couple more questions that are coming in thick and fast now, the questions. Is the HUCO comply process available for jurisdictions outside the US? Is the first question.
Yes, we've done some deconstructions outside the US. The WHO comply process is updated daily. So every time we do a deconstruction, we create those templates and then we save them to our library and we have them to use basically in perpetuity. So we're adding to it every day. Excellent.
And then the sort of follow on from that is it possible to break down permits from outside from non-US locations?
Completely, yes, we do that as well. We can deconstruct basically any permit, any regulation.
Excellent. And then the third question that's coming: what if the permit is general and the requirements are in a plan like an SWPPP?
Yes, we've done a lot of general permits. This is actually a general permit that you're seeing here, and we can deconstruct the SWIP. So what we typically do with that is we deconstruct both the permit and the SWIP. And then we combine the requirements, right? Typically the SWIP is much more detailed with what exactly you have to do. And so we'll just combine the requirements into one deconstruction. And generally we're getting better information from the SWIP because it's telling you what exactly to do versus the general permit that's pretty general. And a couple slides, I'll talk a little bit more about kind of general permits and a different approach we can take for those.
Thanks, Meredith. Elizabeth, is there anything you'd like to add to any of those?
Not especially, but in terms of the stormwater pollution prevention, I'll actually show as we go online. You can have both some compliance calendar tasks that are helping you to stay in compliance there, but also the inspection that I'm planning on showing is an example of a visual inspection for stormwater pollution prevention. So we'll actually kind of be able to look at what that may look like in a couple of tools.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
So this is an example of a permit deconstruction. Typically, we're doing it in a spreadsheet format. We can do permit deconstructions directly in your system, but we find that it's easier to do it in a spreadsheet format. This is kind of intermediary data. And you can see on the first status column, I know it's a little hard to read. In the first status column, there's do not load, 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 do not load. So when you see a do not load, that means it's not an actionable item, right? And you can see there's a permit citation field as well, a couple columns over. So that means we've looked at that permit citation. We don't think there's an actionable item there. You can see there's a task name too. So it had to do with drum dryer vented to fabric filter backhouse. So that permit condition said your drum dryer has to be vented to a fabric filter backhouse. we put a comment in there and we say, hey, we assume this is met by design, that you knew you had to construct it this way. We assume it's constructed that way. We're not going to load a task in there that says, make sure your drum dryer is vented to a fabric filter baghouse. So this is kind of an art, right? Like we don't want to have a bunch of tasks in there that are met by design or common knowledge, right? Because like operators don't want to be closing out a bunch of tasks that just don't make sense. So we want to have tasks that make sense for your operators and for your facilities. But we're including this in the deconstruction so you can make sure you agree with our compliance interpretations. Sometimes we'll also have some questions in here for you, like, you know, maybe we want to verify something with you, so we'll highlight them yellow and we'll review those with you during the review. But anything that's indicated load, that's going to be loaded as a task into your system. In this example, we just have monthly tasks in the screenshot, but again, we can do monthly, quarterly, semi-annual. It just depends what the requirement is, what the operators are really doing in the field. In this case, like in the first load task, there was a monthly baghouse inspection that they were doing. And so we made this a monthly task. And the client wanted to see, you know, baghouse inspection document capitalized. They wanted their stuff in a list format. So we did it exactly the way they wanted to see it. But this is, and they also wanted like the site name directly in the task name. So the task title. Again, we can kind of do it however you would like it. But as you can see, excuse me, in a couple other, the load tasks, the permit conditions are combined, right? If you look at that second load task, there's several different conditions that refer to the temperature. An AI tool is going to give you those conditions in like 3 different line items. So we combine them, we create one task for them. So you're not closing out multiple tasks related to the same thing. So from here, once this is reviewed and vetted, we can then move everything over to the bulk upload template. This is Benchmark's bulk upload template for compliance calendar. And again, I know this is super small, but basically it's just copied and pasted into the fields that we need for the bulk upload template for compliance calendar. And you push a button and it's loaded into compliance calendar and the tasks are created. Again, the easiest, I work with probably 10 to 12 different systems. This is the easiest system to load stuff into. Another quick word about the deconstruction. So sometimes when we're doing the deconstruction, again, we can determine with the client that, hey, you know, maybe this task is better suited as an inspection in the inspections application. So that's something that we can kind of talk through when we're reviewing the deconstruction. I think I just have one more slide after this. Yeah. So this is different approaches we can take depending on the client's needs. We can go permit by permit. So let's say the client has like 100 permits across all their facilities and they want to deconstruct all of them. We can kind of look at the permits and go permit by permit and deconstruct every permit. We would still kind of start with a pilot to kind of get some templates that we think can be consistent across all the facilities, right? Again, if you've got, you know, 30 Title V permits, we want to kind of try to get some consistent task language for your consistent tasks across your Title V permits, your semi-annual deviation reports, your compliance certifications, your deviation, you know, reporting quarterly tasks or whatever we decide. So we're still kind of start with a little pilot to make sure, you know, through that courtship period that I talked about, and through those initial reviews. But then once we get through that, we can pretty much turn and burn through the rest of the deconstructions. And then another approach is a catalog approach. And so this is where you have facilities that are very consistent across all your operations and that are covered by the same types of permits across your operations. We can deconstruct each permit type by state one time. And so this is like a good for if you have a lot of facilities covered by general permits across your states. We can deconstruct that one time, create a set of tasks, and then apply those tasks across your facilities. We did this for Vulcan materials. It was super successful. We originally were going to do permit by permit, and I think the cost estimate was like over $1 million, but we did a little catalog approach as a pilot. It worked well, and we were able to get them down to like less than 100,000. So it worked really well for them. And then there's a hybrid approach, and a lot of our clients do this too. So they have like Title V's and they want to do permit by permit for them. but then they also have like some other permits that are consistent across their operations, and we do catalogs for the rest. So it's just a matter of seeing like what types of permits you have and what would work best for your operations. The other thing that I'll say is that, sometimes we're doing the deconstructions for like the initial implementation, the heavy lift, and then our clients are doing the management of change for the future deconstructions. And then sometimes we're helping them ongoing support, right? They'll say, hey, we got a new permit. Can you update the tasks in the system? So it works either way. We're happy to support ongoing or just support as needed. It can really go both ways. And I think that's it for me.
Great.
Thank you, Meredith.
Awesome.
Elizabeth.
And yeah, thank you for some insight into kind of how Hugo gets things ready to be put into a system like Benchmark. And what I'm going to do here is actually transition over into our online demo site and give you a peek of what that looks like once they've uploaded everything. And so I'm going to come into the compliance calendar module. And for those of you that are not currently using Benchmark or not using the compliance calendar tool, this is a tool where you're going to have the ability to have all of your recurring tasks and obligations broken out by facility so that you can track compliance at the site level. I'm logged in, you'll see, to my Los Angeles, California site. So the tasks that are in here will be specific to that individual site location. And I have a variety of filter criteria that I can utilize to give myself a very personalized view. In this case, I've selected things that I am responsible for and that are regulatory obligations for this facility. And as I scroll down, I'm able to see those various different tasks on the calendar. There are a number of views that I can leverage, whether that is an individual operator just seeing things that are assigned to them, being able to view things monthly, quarterly, or an annual compliance plan. But ultimately, I'm just seeing the things that are applicable to my facility. Now, I took some of the examples that Meredith showed in that example deconstruction that she just had up on the screen from that Huntsville hot mix asphalt plant. So I have a couple of tasks loaded in here that are related to that specific deconstruction. You'll see, based on the way things are coded here on the home page, I have a nice legend up at the top. I can tell when things have gone past due. It's flagging it in red. There are a number of escalations in place that are sending automatic notifications, letting me know that things have gone, past due or overdue. And I also have tasks that are coming up still to complete this week. Now, when I click on an individual task, and we'll use my past due one as an example here, it's going to bring up a very quick summary of what that task is, who's responsible for it, and what the current status is. So I can see that this is open and past due. And if I've now done what I needed to do in terms of, checking on my equipment changes, I'm able to easily mark this out as closed, add completion comments, add attachments, and finalize them. However, what I'm going to do here is actually come in and view the tasks so that you can see what this looks like in our system. When I come get more information about this, I have the ability to add in progress notes. I can view the full task plan and any regulatory citations that are applicable. And if I come in a little bit further to edit this and show you kind of the load screen, you'll see all the detail. Now, as Meredith mentioned, you wouldn't typically load your tasks one at a time. There is an easily available batch upload Excel that will be able to work with you and Hugo to get everything uploaded into the system. But ultimately, this is the data that's going to come over. Unique task identifiers, being able to determine if things are regulatory obligations and business priorities. And what that does is code things differently on the calendar and enable some additional notifications and workflows. You'll see in this case, I can have somebody specific that this would escalate to. If, on this monthly basis for this task, I am not doing what I need to in terms of equipment changes, Kristen is going to be notified 5 days before the due date so that she can work with me to ensure that that is being done on time and not done after the fact. Everything can be categorized to allow for very easy reporting. So this particular task is related to an air permit. However, I would have the ability to have water, waste, general safety permits, whatever that may be, so that I can do specific reporting. I can break out any regulatory citations that are a part of this particular permit and this compliance. and then set those frequencies. Now, as Meredith mentioned, the frequencies can vary. This is a monthly example, but we offer frequencies for things that are done as often as every single day, all the way out to as infrequently as every 10, 15, or 20 years. So if you have a permit that has a very long renewal cycle on it, you have the ability to really set that due date out, 5 or 10 years, ensuring that you're creating an institutional memory of your compliance obligations rather than these items living on somebody's Outlook calendar or paper to-do list.
So, sorry to interrupt you there. Got a couple of questions just relating to that important point you mentioned about tasks and the bulk upload. Just when uploading the spreadsheet data, are there any character limits, formatting, bold underline, or other restrictions for action items when bulk uploading that spreadsheet?
So you ultimately have quite a bit of space that you're able to utilize in the task plan here. This is a free text box that would be populated by the spreadsheet. You'll see it allows for different fonts, different formatting, highlighting, colors, bringing data over in that visual way. Sean, I can see the question. I think ultimately there probably is a character limit, but it is not a small character limit. And I can follow up to ensure what that actually is. You have quite a bit of space to detail out a significant amount of requirements here.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Can you see the second part then about the tasks and the upload?
Yes, absolutely. So when Huco is creating these tasks, they'll create them into a spreadsheet. The bulk upload, as Meredith showed, is very easy to do. It's a copy paste over into an Excel. And Meredith, the question for you, is that something that Huco facilitates or something the client does?
That can go either way. We've had it both ways. We can certainly include it in the project, but the client can also do it themselves. So it's completely up to the client.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm going to backtrack just one quick section here. Within Benchmark, everything will have a singular responsible person, ensuring that things are completed and closed out as they need to be. However, I can always copy additional folks on this for more oversight, making sure everybody is informed. As we discussed here, you'll have that full task plan that's been created by Huco. I can always add web links and other attachments to this as well. So you'll see if I come in and manage this, we've actually uploaded the full text of the permit, but maybe there's also an SOP. Maybe there's also some sort of diagram or document that's relevant to this, and that can be attached along with each task. Additionally, I can tie this directly back to the permit. So the basis for needing to complete this task is this HMA permit that we have. And within that, we have specific requirements around equipment changes. I actually have the ability to run a compliance report for my permit and for specific requirements, allowing me to see what my compliance percentage is, ensuring that I've completed what I need to. I'll show you what that looks like here quickly. You have all of your information in your task, but as you want to report on this, I have the ability to come in and see this task basis requirement compliance report. Now, you can have a variety of different bases in here, whether that's a permit, a regulation, a law, whatever that may be. And then I have the ability to filter as I need to. So we're going to go with my example here of this, Texas permit. And I can filter by specific requirements if I want to. I have multiple that are broken out in here. I can either report by a list of all of the tasks that are keeping me in compliance with that permit, or a compliance report showing my percentage of compliance. If I start with just the task list here, you'll see I have my permit. I have the information around when it was issued and when it expires. And then additionally, I have my 2 individual tasks that go along with this. They're both monthly tasks. I have different due dates for them, and neither have been completed. So currently my completion percentage is 0. Certainly as you are looking at this on an ongoing basis, you'll want to see your completion percentages and the very high numbers, making sure that you are in compliance. There's a number of other reports you can run just to ensure that folks on your sites are doing what they need to, data mining reports, charting. And I will mention compliance calendar is really agnostic of function. We're talking about this in terms of environmental compliance today, but you can have a variety of different tasks in here, whether they're related to general operations around your site, HR, legal, quality, whatever that may be, can be stored here as well. I know we have just a moment, but I want to quickly pop into the inspection tool and give you a peek at that stormwater pollution prevention plan that we were discussing. Inspection tool is going to allow you to create and digitize all of your own inspections, assign those to folks for completion one time or on a recurring basis, and then escalate action items when something is not correct. You'll see on the homepage, I could see anything that was assigned to me. Again, I'm going to have quite a bit of reporting capability, but I'm going to open up the kind of SWIP inspection here and just give you a peek at what this looks like. I have a variety of details that I'll put in around when I'm completing this, what site this is being completed for, and I can have a digital signature if I'd like. And then I can separate this into various sections. So, maybe I'm inspecting particular outfall sites here. I have the ability to go in and mark things as compliant and non-compliant as I need to. If I mark something as compliant, you'll see my ability to add comments and a file attachment and move on. I also, though, have the ability here when I mark something as non-compliant. So if we have a discharge other than stormwater that is going into a storm drain, and say, we're not in compliance here, you'll see this is automatically going to tie us back into the action tracking system. That's where all corrective actions live within Benchmark. I can add in a description of my finding, the action that needs to be taken, and then assign this to a responsible person. Now I'm showing this from my desktop, but this is a tool that we very often see used on the mobile application. When you do these inspections on mobile, it has the same functionality to create those actions, but also is going to allow you to actually use your device to take a photo or take a video of what you're seeing, so that when somebody goes out to complete that corrective action, they'll have, the visual that you had during your inspection. From desktop, of course, I have the ability to drag and drop a variety of different types of files, again, making sure that you have all the relevant documentation. So as Meredith mentioned, it's not just the compliance calendar that can house a number of these requirements for you. It can also be the inspection tool, the action tracking system, or some of our more specialized modules like AirLog and WaterWatch. Now, being conscious of time here, I am going to switch back over to the slides here and pull up our kind of closing slide. Pete, I will hand it to you to help us wrap things up. Oh, Pete, I think you're on mute.
No, absolutely. The mute button got clicked but didn't action. Slightly delayed. Thanks for that. I think one thing that's become very clear to me, and I'm sure it has our audience too, is that if you want to turn complexity into simplicity, engaging experts is a great way of ensuring the likelihood of success is increased. Listening to the session today has really sort of, I think, highlighted that. There's some things that go on that, touching base with people who've been there before, seen it and done it is certainly going to help anybody who wants to, carry out that journey. So on that note, I'd like to thank everybody for, time and attention today. There's a poll that we're just running here just to sort of establish some of the, typical thoughts around the session today. So please, would appreciate your attention to that poll. It always gives us a bit of an insight and helps us, formulate success for future sessions from which I'll sure you'll all benefit. So yeah, if you could take a look, that would be great. But we hope you found the session enlightening and useful. Thanks for the questions. There was a great lot of questions in there, which really helps the interaction. But should you have any sort of follow-up questions and you wish to get engaged further on the topic, then, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Elizabeth or Meredith. You'll see their, contact details on the screen there. And of course, what would a session be without a QR code? I mean, it seems to be the thing that really, gets people excited today. So please scan that QR code. That will get you a direct link to progressing your own digital journey. And the slide deck and the session recording obviously were made available after the event. It just remains for me to say thanks to Meredith and Elizabeth. Really useful insight as our in session experts there. Appreciate that. Thanks everyone for joining, and do enjoy the rest of your day.